Welcome to the Cyber Rants podcast, where we're all about sharing the forbidden secrets and slightly embellished truths about corporate cybersecurity programs. We're ranting, we're raving, and we're telling you the stuff that nobody talks about on their fancy website and trade show giveaways, all to protect you from cyber criminals. And now, here's your hosts, Mike Rotondo, Zach Fuller, and Lauro Chavez.
Welcome to the Cyber Rants podcast. This is your co-host, Zach Fuller, joined by Mike Rotondo and Lauro Chavez. And today we are talking all about the benefits of cybersecurity to go far beyond cyber risk management. A lot of people think of cybersecurity as a risk management issue, as almost a sunk cost, but I say that is incorrect because we've seen it help companies grow, thrive, go through major acquisitions. There are a lot of benefits far beyond risk management, and we are going to get into that today. But before we do, Mike, why don't you kick us off with the news?
Good day and welcome to the news. The U.S. DoD tricked into paying $23.5 million to a phishing actor. The U.S. Department of Justice has announced the conviction of a resident of California for multiple counts of relating to a phishing operation that caused $23.5 million in damages to the U.S. Department of Defense. I think that's a hammer. The fraudster managed to divert to his personal bank account DoD funds destined to a jet fuel supplier. Conspirators registered the domain dia-mil.com, which is very similar to the legitimate DLA-mil, and used it to send phishing emails. These emails were delivered to users in a vendor database or companies that would want to conduct business with the federal government register themselves. The phishing messages contain links to a cloned login.gov website where the victimized vendors entered their account details, unknowingly exposing them to the conspirators. This is why we recommend phishing training.
Seriously. Yes. And if you're going to do this, if you're a criminal doing this, don't have the funds wired to your own personal bank account. I mean, come on. He managed to pull all this off and had the funds sent to his own bank. Like nobody's going to notice.
It's called smart stupid.
Wow. Well, if you read the story, he had a co-conspirator in New Jersey that owned a used car dealership. Big surprise. That basically registered under his own business the bank account, another bank account. So.
Oh, wow. That's, man, you got to be more crafty than that.
Not leaving breadcrumbs, you're leaving whole pizzas behind.
Yeah. Do your phishing training, people.
Yeah, .mil, and there is no such thing as .mil.com.
For all of those of you who are worried about the onslaught of Russian hacking because they have all this labor laying around of Russian hackers, this is for you. Russia to rent tech-savvy prisoners to corporate IT. Faced with a brain drain of smart people fleeing the country following the invasion of Ukraine, the Russian Federation is floating a new strategy to address a worsening shortage of qualified information technology experts, forcing tech-savvy people with the nation's prison population to perform low-cost IT work for domestic companies. Multiple Russian news outlets published stories on April 27th saying the Russian federal penitentiary system had announced a plan to recruit IT specialists from Russian prisons to work remotely for domestic commercial companies. So, those of you.
I can't even.
Yeah.
What are they in jail for? Probably hacking.
Yeah.
Well, it's Russia. It could be spitting on the sidewalk, so who knows?
Good point.
I'm just curious about if they didn't arrest them for hacking and they're in jail, how do they know that they're tech savvy? Does everybody get a test or what? I mean,
it's a dossier.
They may have been a criminal that, or a IT person that got busted for drugs, or
that's
who knows?
Good point.
But yeah, I guess it beats hard labor in Siberia, but
well, yeah, that or dealing with, Microsoft. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's a lot we could hack on this. I'm going to leave it there. Leave it as is.
My only concern is due to the brain drain or the tech shortage of workers that we have in the United States is some, rocket scientists at the Department of Justice going to go, hey, we can do that too. So, yeah. Anyway, There isn't a, yeah, anyway, I'm going to go on. New U.S. breach reporting rules for banks take effect May 1. New cyber incident reporting rules are set to come into effect in the U.S. on May 1. Banks in the country will be required to notify regulators within the first 36 hours after an organization suffers a qualifying computer security event. The Act defines a security event as a computer security. It says it's an occurrence that results in actual harm to the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of an information system or the information that the system processes, stores, or transmits. An incident requiring subsequent notification, the agency says, is defined as a computer security incident that has disrupted or degraded a banking organization's operation and its ability to deliver services to a material portion of its customer base and business lines. Based on this, they're saying large-scale DDoS attacks, system outages, failed system upgrades, unrecoverable system failures resulting in activation of continuity or DR plans, computer hacking incident, malware on bank's network, or ransomware attack that encrypts core banking systems. So you're in the banking system, keep that in mind. According to Mozilla, lack of security protections in mental health apps is creepy. Mental health apps is creepy on its own, but that's another story. Well, they have good intentions to foster mental health and spiritual wellness. The majority of mental health and prayer apps can harm their users in other ways by exposing personal and intimate data due to the severe lack of security and privacy protections. Researchers from Mozilla have found of 32 mental health and prayer mobile apps investigated by the open source organization, 28 were found to be inherently insecure and slapped with privacy not included label, according to the report of the same name published online this week. Moreover, 25 apps failed to meet Mozilla's minimum security standards, such as requiring strong passwords and managing security updates and vulnerabilities. Unpatched DNS is important for all of you with remote workforces, which I think is all of you. So all 5 million of you, please perk up. Unpatched DNS bug affects millions of routers and IoT devices. A vulnerability in the domain name system component of a popular C standard library that is present in a wide range of IoT products may put millions of devices at DNS poisoning attack risk. A threat actor can use DNS poisoning or DNS spoofing to redirect the victim to a malicious website posted at an IP address on a server controlled by the attacker instead of a legitimate location. The library, which is UCLibc, and its fork from the OpenWRT team UCLibc-NG, both variants are widely used by the major vendors, the Concern, Netgear, Axis, and Linksys, as well as a Linux distribution suitable for embedded applications. This is good news, maybe. Ransomware payments, just 46% of victims now pay ransomware. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Is the tide finally turning on ransomware? One piece of good news, maybe, is that the number of organizations hit by ransomware who choose to pay ransom their attackers has been declining, reports ransomware instant response firm Coveware. Based on thousands of cases on which it has worked, Coveware says the number of ransomware hit victims who paid a ransom declining from 85% in Q1 of 2019 to 46% in Q1 of this year. Coveware's findings stand in contrast to recently released study from Sophos, which noted that the number of organizations that self-reported paying ransomware had increased from 2020 to 2021. The actual study was based on a self-reported survey where Coveware's findings are based on actual cases. Depending on who you believe, they're going up or it's going down. The first quarter of the year, Coveware found these are the ransomware strains had the most market share. Conti V2 had 16.1%, Lockbit 2.0, 14.9%, Blackgat 7.1%, Hive 5.4%, Avos Locker 4.8%. With that, we've got some critical headlines. F5 has 10 flaws in its products. Go ahead. If you have F5, check into that. There's a deep dive protecting against container threats and the cloud. Is a little too technical to talk about in the news, but is an excellent read. And then got some cool names today. Chinese override Panda hackers resurfaced with new espionage attacks, and Chinese linked Motion Dragon abuses security software to sideload malware. So I don't know what a Motion Dragon is, but sounds scary. So with that, Laura?
Motion. I like it. So
Yeah.
That last news article about REvil coming back, I think, is a good segue into exploits this week as we look at some really, really cool work from one of the security researchers out there. I'm going to drop his name, Hyperlinks. Thank you so much for all this awesome work that you've done to basically give us blue team guys and all you blue team guys out there some good fight back against REvil. Okay, the cool thing about this is that the ransomware itself is terrible when it's working against you. However, like many software pieces, just like Mike was talking about, for the prayer apps and things, the coders who built REvil didn't really put a lot of security into the app itself. So there are DLLs that this malware looks for, and you can hijack those DLLs because they sit on disk, and you can get them to do anything that you want. So you can get ahead of this ransomware, this malware, before it actually even starts terminating things and doing harm on your system. And the cool thing is that Hyperlink's not only given us some of the exploit code for this that you can use to help yourself, but he's also provided that not only just for REvil, but for Trojan Crypto Wall. There's like the Ransom Locker Goga. There's ransomware server code execution that he's got. So there's a CBT locker code execution. So check those out from Hyperlinks. I think if you're blue teaming and you've had some infections with this before, or you're helping companies do reactive response, check this out, because you might be able to get ahead of these DLLs and stop the ransomware from doing harm, just based on the weak security that the hackers provided in the code. So that's cool. So a little win for exploits that go against some of the malware this week. And then the other one that we have, unfortunately, is against us. It's for the Verizon 4G LTE network extender. So if you got one of these network extenders in your house that's extending your 4G LTE if you're in a remote location, make sure that you're trying to get off of version 4, because there is a weak credential algorithm that the producers of this extender baked into the product. So one of the security researchers out there has given us some insight into essentially the naming convention that the device uses to build its admin account for everybody. If you don't go in and change this, there's a script that can easily guess this on pretty much any one of these devices, instantly giving you access to then install other things, or do harm or turn off or whatever you're going to do to the LTE switch. So if you've got one of these, make sure you're taking a look at it. Change the admin password to something manual. Don't let it do it on units using its auto function, and also try to get off of version 4, because that is the one that's weak. All versions prior up to 4 contain this flaw. So that's all I have for exploits this week. But I hear we're going to be talking about how cybersecurity can help you win some multi-million-dollar contracts potentially. New business. Isn't that right, Zach? Something like that?
That's exactly right. That is exactly what we're talking about. But before we do, let's take a quick commercial break.
Want even more Cyber Rants? Be sure to subscribe to the Cyber Rants podcast. Get your copy of our best-selling book, Cyber Rants, on Amazon today. This podcast is brought to you by Silent Sector, the firm dedicated to building world-class cybersecurity programs for mid-market and emerging companies across the U.S. Silent Sector also provides industry-leading penetration tests and cyber risk assessments. Visit silentsector.com and contact us today.
And we're back. And before we dive in, Mike, I just wanted to say about the article you mentioned about ransomware payments going down. I might assume that maybe it's all the people listening to the Cyber Rants podcast and hearing us rant about not paying ransoms. You think that could be it?
I would assume so. Yeah. I mean, I would think that.
I don't know who else in this industry is shaming on people for paying ransoms. I mean, so it has to be because of us.
Well, I think when we passed our billionth listener, I think we really had a reach that could broadcast this message out.
Making a dent in the universe.
Making a dent. Shame on you for paying a ransom.
We got an email from a guy out in Mongolia who thought that the cyber ransom was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. So, yeah, in all seriousness, though, get yourself a backup plan where you're backing up like near real time, if not daily, sometime between near real time and daily. That way you don't have to pay ransoms. You can
That's right. Be sure to remember that the Cyber Rants podcast is far better than any type of endpoint protection or firewalls or SIM solutions or anything else out there. So it starts with knowledge. All right. Yeah. And that said, let's dive into today's topic. So,
wow.
Shameless plug.
Shameless.
Cybersecurity is a tremendous asset for especially for business to business companies. Why is that? It's because large enterprises are very serious about cybersecurity because of all the breaches, what's on the line, the expenses, people getting fired over breaches, all of that stuff going on. So large enterprises now want to make sure that their vendors, especially their technology vendors, but they don't have to be technology vendors, really all of their vendors are operating in a secure manner, right? If I'm the person at a large enterprise and I am looking at potential options, a platform or software, some sort of solution or any type of vendor to use, I need to make sure that one, my data is going to be protected, but two, operationally, that I could count on them, right? One vendor could take down an entire company when that company is reliant on them for operations. So if you put yourself in the shoes of somebody in a large enterprise, they have to make sure that the organizations they're bringing on board are secure, and it's been proven that they are willing to pay more for vendors for solutions that present a lower level of risk than the other options out there. So with that said, security can drive revenue, can grow your company, can create a competitive advantage. There's absolutely no doubt about it, and we've seen it. Mike or Laura, do you want to kick us off with any case studies, any stories that you've seen, even just from our own clients and experiences out there in the wild?
Sure, Mike. Do you want Rochambeau? You want to go? You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Why don't you? Why don't you go first, sir? It's my honor to let you go.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind. You're so kind. I'll say that cybersecurity is kind of like the Grey Poupon out there. You got your big giant company executive driving around, and he's out of Grey Poupon because he expects it in his company. Because they have the money to afford Grey Poupon, and they pull up next to the Civic, and he rolls the window down and he says, "Do you have any Grey Poupon?" And you say, "What's that?" And he goes, "Oh," and he scoffs at you and drives off. Right. So he's like, we have to go look for somebody who's got Grey Poupon for my sandwich. That's cybersecurity, and as funny as that sounds, it in the case studies that I'll talk about here with some clients that we've walked through this whole process and successfully seen them fly off into the hundreds of millions of dollars of acquisitions that happen after we've done our good work, right? We've helped the company align to a framework and get contracts, and so one of the cases I'll talk about is we had a services company that was really, really good at coming into your business. And if you were using this there's a big industry level software out there that everybody uses for CRM. Okay. And a lot of companies use this software and they don't use it very well. Well, this services company that we served could come in and they could take that and turn it into they could take that piece of 10 that you had laying around that you were using for CRM because you didn't really know what you were doing, and they could turn it into a complete rocket ship for you. And it was unbelievable, and they could do it in a very short amount of time. Okay. And so they were really good at what they did, but they lacked a lot of, there were a bunch of consultants that were really smart at configuring this tool for you. They didn't really have a lot of, on the back end. They had one IT guy that was trying to do it all and keep it together with, about 30 people in the shop. So what happened is the same thing that we talk about always happens. You start getting questionnaires as your client base grows, and you start getting into a larger echelon of clients in the Fortune 150 ranges. As Zach said, the Grey Poupon, right? As I mentioned, they're going to expect that of you, and they're going to send you this questionnaire. And so there was a bid. The services company had a bid for. There was essentially over $1 million. It was like $1.3 million worth of work for this huge automotive company. And our client, the services company, we had, we hadn't quite taken them on yet. They had received a security questionnaire from this automotive organization, and they just couldn't answer it. And so they, with a quick Google search, they found us. We were a local client, and we were, local positioned there for them. And so we went and met with them. And we signed a statement of work, and within about 5 or 6 days, we had that contract moved through sales. We had the security questionnaire completed in a manner that let the automotive company know that they had partnered with a professional services team, and that these were going to be the changes in the roadmap that were going to be occurring over the next year. And they went ahead and accepted that as, you know, a good faith. And so this giant automotive client now broke all the records for our services client in the amount of contract money this was. This was huge. Over $1 million in contracts is just an amazing amount of money. Well, this isn't the first one.
Annual, if I remember right, wasn't it $1 million a year, $1 million plus a year?
It was $1 million plus a year for this. Absolutely.
For ongoing services. Yeah. So it's a big deal.
Big deal. And so to fast forward this, okay, so Silent Sector is absolutely involved with this client. And we're walking them through the frameworks. We're putting in all of the proactive cybersecurity stuff that we know that everybody is not only needs to reduce their risk, but also to adhere to the frameworks that all these big companies are looking for you to do. And so after that contract came through, you know, another security questionnaire comes in, and next thing you know, this services company we're serving is making over $1 million a week in revenue. Then this is no joke. This is no made up story. This is the real stuff here. This is what dreams are made out of. It really is. And so another, what were they? Where do we say they were, Mike? They're a technical company that's a Fortune 50. Again, I'm not trying to drop names here, so forgive me.
Yeah, they were a large integrator. Yeah.
Okay, so they're a large integrator offered to buy our services company that we were serving. And they accepted. And I'm not sure what that final number was, but it had a lot of zeros on it. It was incredibly just an amazing lucrative venture, right? And so we got to not only watch this, you know, help this company get to a place where they were making $1 million a week in contracts, but also walk them through this acquisition process to this giant tech company that then purchased them. And of course, you know, we had to part ways, but you know, that's the nature of why we do this. I want to say that is that we're, you know, at least I believe Mike and I do this. We're not doing this so we can stick with you for 50 years. We're trying to teach you to hunt and fish on your own so that you can be self-sufficient. And we want you to build your security team and your security program and be sufficient in that and say goodbye to us and say, thank you for teaching us. Thank you for guiding us. Oh, Sherpa of the cybersecurity mountain, you know, we thank you. And we'll part ways. And then, you know, that's the whole point of it, right? Is to reduce all of the American business's risk as a whole. And, you know, we can help guide you through that process. Sometimes, you know, unfortunately, we do stick around because, as you know, some of these companies realize the stuff is difficult to do. And sometimes it's hard to hire professionals. And so we'll be in these roles longer. But this was, I guess, probably the perfect case study for us, in my opinion. We came in, we got them the contracts, we got them to a place in business where they were high integrity in the market. They got purchased. We walked them through that acquisition process with the lawyers. And we got to say goodbye and thank you. And there was like this big party and dancing and confetti, and it was beautiful. There was hugs.
They don't call, they don't write, they don't check in anymore. We don't hear from them.
They're counting their money. They're kind of busy. So
they are.
Give them a break. I would do the same.
It's like taking care of a little bird that fell out of its nest and then it flies away in the end. And you're like, it'll never come back.
Give me a moment. I got to get a tissue, wipe my tears.
Yeah, but I'm so proud of that little bird. I got it all the way to where it can fly.
It is, you know, it is really, really awesome. And that's, you know, that's one of our things in our company values and kind of our purpose and cause and such. Really, our company passion is just that. It's accelerating the growth and success of our clients. And that's just one of many stories, but if that doesn't get y'all hot and bothered, man, I don't know what will. I mean, that's cybersecurity really is a revenue driver, a competitive advantage. I'm excited. Any other stories we want to go through, or do we want to dive into some of the mechanics of it?
On a less grand scale, I mean, there are clients that we deal with on a regular basis that are dealing with smaller engagements and smaller companies, and they're, you know, $50,000, $100,000 engagements, or, you know, contracts with clients, or, you know, $500,000 here or there. But those questionnaires are just as important for those companies as well. And we walk them through that. We've developed environments for them to do that. And we've developed solutions for them. And, you know, one of the key things is not just answering the questionnaire, it's doing what you're saying you're doing. And that is, you know, we get you NIST or CIS compliant, and then we get you on, you know, get that stabilized, and we stabilize your environment so you can answer those questionnaires And the goal is to teach you to answer those questionnaires on your own. I mean, gladly we'll help you, but you know, I can think of a bunch of clients that we've got that we, you know, are winning business for just by being able to either show or demonstrate that they are compliant, but answering the questionnaires properly as well is a big deal. So
yeah, we pretty much we give that, and you know, that gives that integrity, right? And there's a competitive advantage to having that cybersecurity card in your pocket for your business, because you know, these large companies, they're going to farm out these questionnaires, and you may be familiar with the process, but you know, you're going to answer these questions, and they have individuals like Mike and I that are going to review these responses, and they're going to write a risk report. And so if you've got a widget and it's the only widget in the whole market and no one else has it, but everybody wants it, then you can just answer no. And there's probably a chance that you'll still get some clients, right? You can just say, I'm not answering a questionnaire ever because I got the only amazing widget that does this widget stuff. You know what I mean? It's widgety. So you might, in that case, if you're in that completely super small slice of tech space, be able to get contracts without answering questionnaires. But everybody else is going to answer that questionnaire, and this big organization is going to say, well, we need this widget. Do a market analysis on this, and they're going to come back and say, well, there's 14 widgets to do what we need to do. And so they're going to farm the questionnaires out, and out of those 14, they're going to look at price, they're going to look at risk, and they're going to determine which one's going to be the best move forward. And so, you know, if the price point's right, that's one thing, but then how much risk does the client, you know, is going to incur now based on what they responded to the question.
Well, yeah, and keep in mind that their risk is being driven by the fact that they have insurance underwriters and they have liabilities and they have cadres of lawyers that are telling them, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, you can do that. It's not up to now, the other thing I've seen in the industry, and then we can jump to the next topic, Zach, is that I've seen a lot of these small companies, especially with female employees that are spearheading this, being treated poorly by the sales staff and being treated by security people, either when they're asking questions about their security, or requesting security stuff from those companies, from companies that they're trying to get as vendors. And that I find disgusting, but a lot of those people are, but we're seeing that. I've seen that a lot. I saw that recently, and I was mad about it. Well, the nice thing is the women that were running this program came back to me, and they're like, we're having problems with this. And the guy was pushing back hard. And so I said, well, just tell him to talk to me. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, talk to this guy now. And having the person come in that has the credentials and be able to answer the questions for you, who isn't going to get pushed around by the vendor or whoever it is, helps. So
it does. It's sad that their misogyny, you know, is still unfortunately, you know, there. But you know, I mean, we're strong supporters of our, you know, our female leadership that, you know, they just do an outstanding job. And it's a shame that still happens in the industry, but it certainly does. And for all of you, you know, even if you're not female out there having issues with vendors, we call him the enforcer. So I don't know that you need any other individual to talk to somebody who's giving you problems at all, ever.
Mike can shut those people up really quick. So it's one of his skill sets. I think he has a certification in that, right?
Yeah. There's good cop, bad cop, and Mike cop.
Yeah. You're certified in STFU. I like it.
Well said. Let's get a little bit into the mechanics of this, and you know, I think this is something we could do many episodes on, and we've talked a lot about this, but just at a high level, you know, what are the most common things that the large enterprises are looking for in their vendors in terms of security? Is it specific security measures in place? Is it third-party attestations? What do you hear the most common? What do you hear is the most common requests from large enterprises?
I'm seeing SOC 2 and third-party attestation of security framework compliance. Those are the two big ones. The third-party questionnaires will contain the questions pertaining to those two, but those are the two big underlying things that I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, if you can provide a SOC 2 or an attestation letter along with the questionnaire, I think that really seals the deal. That's the certification stamp essentially, right, on that return item for the risk. But from a technical piece on the questionnaires, I think I see a lot of things that are pertaining to control of data on mobile devices, specifically bring your own mobile device. So all the companies out there that are letting your employees use their personal compute at home to VPN in or use your Office 365 or G Suite or whatever, there's a lot of risk that's happening there because you can have file movements across that VPN from that essentially uncontrolled non-issued device that you're allowing to basically interface with your business compute. And so they're asking a lot of questions around how are you handling when an employee leaves, how are you handling the email on their personal phone if you're letting them use their personal phone to connect to company email. So keep that in mind. The other one I still see a lot of is, I think it has to do with isolation of the host. So I think a lot of it is kind of moving towards this kind of micro subnetting where every host has some form of tool on it that isolates it as its own singularity, essentially, right at the interface NIC. So between 127.0.0.1 and your 10.10. Whatever, it's holding that device in its own DMZ, if you will. So they're looking for that kind of granular control. I don't want to call it zero trust, but it's getting towards that. And then, of course, the firewall, the intrusion detections are still, being requested or you're asked about. Obviously, all your policies and what you're doing, change management, asset management, things like that. And then the data encryption at rest. How are you protecting the data at rest and on removable media, and then controlling access to the data? So the clients want to know, hey, if you're holding my data, how does your team get access to my data? Can they, does there a request process they have to go through? Talk to me about that process. Talk to me about the permissions that you're giving the different employees based on their role of responsibilities. So there's still a lot of that in the questionnaires.
Yeah.
So let's talk. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was also saying there's also a lot of SIEM questions and stuff like that we touched on last week. I know it's Laura's favorite topic, the logging. But
I tried to avoid that, but yeah, that's there.
Don't get him started. Let's talk about a little bit about those organizations that don't have all the security controls in place. And we see this is common, especially emerging tech companies, right? It's starting to get more and more interest from Fortune 500s and they're getting these security questionnaires and they say, Mike, Laura, I don't have all this stuff. What do I do? Can you talk a little bit about navigating that with their prospects, information security team, and kind of the back and forth and negotiation that goes on?
You can lie about it and hope they don't ask for evidence.
We don't advise that.
Yeah.
That is an option.
But yeah, it's certainly a viable option.
And done very frequently, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah, ask for evidence. Everybody on the corporate teams out there listening to us. Yeah, ask for evidence.
Now, don't collect the evidence. Do a screen share, but yes, you want evidence. And for those of you who are lying on questionnaires, if Silent Sector finds out you're lying on your questionnaires, we'll probably fire you as a client.
Absolutely. We do not approve of such behavior. You got to be. Here's the thing: is that, unfortunately, we talk about this as a revenue driver. Okay, I like to see it as more of a return on investment, right? It's hard to quantify in cybersecurity, which is why all the security teams that listen to us, we understand your pain about not getting budget, right? And all you leaders that are asking for money for, risk reduction technologies are not getting budget because your leaders have a hard time seeing why we need something else, right? Cybersecurity is already just a big, budget suck. But it is true, you will get a return on this. So if you're a small one-man shop and you've got a widget, we deal a lot with that. I think we see that pretty often. That's not super common, but it comes up for us, right? Because we do focus on those small businesses, and we'll occasionally have a very cool single shop web developer, DevOps, cybersecurity individual all in one who's made a really cool widget that everybody wants to use, and in the same situation, he's getting the questionnaires. Unfortunately, there are some things you can do to help yourself, like just doing proper segmentation of duties. Saying that, when I log into my SaaS environment or I log into a dev computer, it's a completely separate account than the one I use on my regular computer, right? Or during my regular activities, I have a completely separate dev account. So I keep those realms separated on the compute devices. But there is going to be some investment. There's going to be some investment specifically right around time. There's going to be time you're going to need to take to do things, right? So there's going to be a time cost always with cybersecurity. And there's probably going to be a little bit of a monetary cost. The smaller you are, the less expensive it is, of course. The bigger you are, the more expensive it is, just because of the nature you have more things, right? And that's typically how these security services companies give you tech, is based on how many IPs or seats or whatever, right, that their licensing models are made out of. So if you're smaller, it's still, it's more affordable compared to a Fortune 50 company's expense, but it still may be expensive to you. It's still, whether it's 10 grand or $5,000 or 55 grand, that could be like a lot of money to you as a small business. But try to look at the big picture. You're going to invest in these risk reduction technologies. Number one, they're going to reduce your risk. They're going to keep you from getting hacked. Hopefully, you're going to keep your business logic and your internal intelligence safe. And also, they're going to give the integrity check to larger companies that you're trying to get as clients that are going to come and say, how are you handling this? And you can say that, well, I've invested in these technologies, or this consultantship, or whatever the case may be, this partnership with an MSSP, or what are we, Zach? MPO? I can't remember. We call ourselves something.
We're a unique animal that's really started an entirely new industry, but that's not about us.
We are. We're the unicorn of cybersecurity. Shameless plug. We are. You're just not going to find the capabilities in other organizations that you find at Silent Sector. That's just the truth.
Well, but if I'm back to the question, if I'm hearing you right, basically the way to navigate this is get started and show a path forward, right? Show a documented path forward, a plan of action, right? Something that shows that, hey, we're on it.
You also have a way of straight arrowing my circumlocution, sir. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Please continue.
It would be great if there was a cybersecurity company, maybe Silent Sector, that started a small business program that had a small canned startup process for this.
For small businesses, think of one? Wow.
Can you think of one?
That's probably enough shameless plugs for the.
Yeah,
I think that's 3 or 4 and a commercial.
Silent Sector that's striding through the universe has a smaller unicorn riding on its back that is for small businesses. So unfortunately, that magical beast does exist.
Yeah, don't be afraid of the cost, because there are services out there that at least do something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you're going to get it back. You're going to start doing something, just like you said, Zach. Do something. Start someplace. Buy some anti-malware tool and deploy it. Simple stuff, right? Start thinking about how you're handling the data. You're going to handle the data for the client, or the intellectual property security. Do something. Grab one of these frameworks. Download it. Look at it. They're free, right? They're free to look at. They're sometimes costly to implement, but download it and look at it and see where you fall. Just go through it. They're 180 lines of suck, but go through it, see where you fall in line. The truth is that you're going to invest in this stuff, and these companies that are sending these security questionnaires now that you can answer honestly and you're not lying that through your teeth about this stuff, they're going to have high confidence in your services and your ability to protect them while you do services for them. Right. And they're going to go with you. And so these contractors are going to start coming in, just like they did for our previous client who thought cybersecurity was not worth investing in, and they took a chance. And look where it landed them. In less than 2 years, they got millions and millions of dollars for their company, right? And also became more secure in the process. And so it's certainly a repeatable thing that'll happen. So you will get that money back at some point. It's not just throw away dead in the water.
Right.
Here's an idea, a little bit off the wall, but sharpen up that sales saber. Get it ready, because you can go and show a well-articulated plan, kind of get the deal across, but get some money up front that covers these cybersecurity expenses that you're facing. Right? Yep. Get a early payment, or get something negotiated, because I mean, let's face it, Fortune 5, especially if you're a smaller company, these Fortune 500s, I mean, they have deep pockets. They can cut a check, get you funded a little early, and there have been a lot of successful startups that way that actually raised their money through their client base, through their prospect base, I should say, that became clients by doing all kinds of creative stuff like that, from early payments to early distribution rights, selling territory rights, all kinds of stuff. So don't think of it as black and white, we can do this right now or we don't. It's more, how can we do this? So,
well, there was one client we had that they had a long-term client that was now asking them for a certification, or at least a framework letter of attestation, and they got the client to pay half of it, right? Yeah. So, I mean, that's also a possibility.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to ask these large enterprises for things, and remember the people you're dealing with. It's not like it's money out of their pocket. They're not going to their retirement fund and pulling it out and saying, hey, here, we'll pay for half your stock too, right? It's company funds, they have funds designated for stuff like this. And you have a good solution, a good product, they're going to want to keep you. So it's just how it goes. Yeah. Well, hey, we're running up way past time here, but any final words of wisdom before we jump off?
Don't lie don't lie on your questionnaires.
Yeah, get some Grey Poupon.
Grey Poupon. Yeah. I'm going to go make a sandwich. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Cyber Rants podcast. You can check out the news articles online at cyberrantspodcast.com. You can also submit your topics, questions, areas of discussion for future episodes. We're also available on LinkedIn. So connect with us and share and like the episode and rate it, all that good stuff. Everything you can do, please do. We love to get the word out. And that's our goal with this podcast, is really to help organizations become more secure, but also use those security efforts to grow and thrive and bring in tons and tons of revenue. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Pick up your copy of the Cyber Rants book on Amazon today. And if you're looking to take your cybersecurity program to the next level, visit us online at www.silentsector.com. Join us next time for another edition of the Cyber Rants podcast.